Part 1 of 3, r/true off my chest. Title: My boss used to bully me. Now I'm his boss. Part 1. I don't usually post stuff like this, and I debated even writing it out at all. But I've had this story sitting on my chest for years, literally, and now that the dust has settled, I figured maybe someone else out there needs to hear it. This is the story of how my boss, who made my life miserable for years, ended up having to call me, sir. Let's rewind. Back in 2015, I was working at a mid-sized marketing agency. You know the kind: open office, bean bags in the corner for chill energy, and a broken espresso machine that no one fixed because it was quirky. I was 25, fresh out of grad school with a degree in communications and a shiny, unrealistic belief that hard work and loyalty were all it took to get ahead. That's when I met him. Let's call him Rick. Because of course his name was Rick. Rick was one of those guys who read The Art of War and thought it was a management manual. Always had something snarky to say, wore sunglasses indoors like he was allergic to the fluorescent lighting, and talked with his hands like he was directing traffic. His favorite phrase? Step up or step out. He was also my boss. I started off as a junior account coordinator. Low pay, high stress, and zero respect. But I was eager. Naive, maybe. I worked late. I offered to help with other people's decks. I never said no. Rick noticed. But not in a good way. Instead of mentoring me, like he did with certain other employees, aka the ones who laughed at his jokes, he made me the office punching bag. Jesus, try not to stutter through the client call next time, he said once, in front of the entire team. Another time, you look like you slept in that shirt. You trying to scare the client into saying yes? Every meeting was a minefield. He'd roll his eyes when I spoke. Correct me mid-sentence. Once, I spent a whole weekend putting together a pitch deck he'd forgotten to assign, only for him to present it as his own without even a nod in my direction. I wish I could say I stood up for myself. I didn't. I needed the job. My student loans were no joke, and I was still recovering from a messy breakup that had left me basically couch surfing for a while. So I swallowed it. All of it. There was this one day, I remember it like a movie scene. A Thursday. We were prepping for a massive pitch. One of our biggest prospective clients. The entire office was in go mode. I'd worked late 3 nights that week and slept maybe 5 hours total. Rick called a last-minute prep meeting. I showed up 5 minutes late because the elevator broke, and I had to take the stairs from the parking garage. He stopped mid-sentence when I walked in. "Oh, look who finally decided to show up," he said, all smug. "Don't worry, guys. He just wanted to make a dramatic entrance." People laughed. Nervous laughter. Not real. I mumbled, "Sorry." Elevator was down. Rick smirked. Yeah. Maybe next time try being on time like the rest of us. Or do you need us to call you a wake-up service? I felt my ears burn. My heart was pounding. I looked around the room, nobody met my eyes. Not even Emily, who I'd worked on 3 projects with and thought was kind of my work friend. They just looked down at their notes. Rick moved on like nothing happened. Like I was invisible. Like I wasn't even a person. That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot for an hour. Didn't even start the engine. Just sat there. Hands on the wheel. Radio off. The silence so loud it hurt. And I realized something. This was never going to change. Not unless I changed it. So I did. I didn't rage quit. I didn't storm into his office with a "you'll regret this" speech. Honestly, I think Rick would have loved that. Gave him the drama he fed off of. No. I went quiet. I started documenting everything. Every jab, every insult, every time he assigned work he later took credit for. I wrote it all down in a private Google Doc, dated, with screenshots when I could get them. I also started working on me. I found an online certification program in project management and enrolled. Nights, weekends, holidays, didn't matter. I was done playing the game by Rick's rules. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my roommate. By day, I was still the same quiet guy in the office. Still nodding along, still doing the work. But behind the scenes? I was plotting my way out. The real turning point came 6 months later. There was a surprise organizational restructure. The parent company that owned our agency decided to streamline leadership, which basically meant reorging the upper tiers and letting a few mid-managers go. Rick wasn't one of them. Of course not. He somehow landed a promotion. Director of Client Engagement, which was mostly just a shinier title and more power to make people miserable. I was this close to quitting. But just before I handed in my 2 weeks, something happened. I got a message on LinkedIn. It was from an old professor of mine, now working as an executive at another agency, a competitor, in fact. He'd seen my certification updates and wanted to know if I'd be open to freelance project management work. Nothing big at first, just helping with scheduling, timelines, budget planning. Pay is decent, he wrote. And there's room to grow if you're good. I said yes. I didn't even hesitate. For the next year, I worked 2 lives. By day, I was still stuck in Rick's circus. He didn't even notice I'd quietly been removed from most client-facing roles. I think HR got a few quiet complaints about his treatment of me. He probably thought I was being sidelined. But by night? I was building something new. The side gig turned into a contract. The contract turned into part-time. And eventually, I got a full-time offer from that same competitor agency. Higher pay. Better title. A team that respected me. I left Rick's company in 2018 with a generic 2-sentence farewell email. I didn't even bother listing Rick as a reference. The day I walked out, I swear to God, it felt like oxygen for the first time in years. The next few years? I thrived. My new agency grew fast, and I grew with it. I got promoted twice. Led multi-million-dollar campaigns. Became the youngest VP in the company's history. And then came the merger. Our agency and Rick's were merging under a larger umbrella firm. New leadership, new structure, and new roles to fill. Guess who got tapped for head of client strategy for the entire East Coast? Yep. Me. When the announcement was made, Rick's name was nowhere on the internal list of new leadership roles. Word got around that his team was being folded into mine. He was now technically reporting to me. I was his boss. I didn't gloat. I didn't send a smug email. But I did schedule a 1:1 onboarding call. Just me and him. For the first time in years. He entered the Zoom room late, no surprise. Wearing his signature too-tight dress shirt, slightly older now but still smug. Except this time, I noticed something new. Nervousness. He smiled. Well, look who's climbing the ladder. I smiled back, calm, professional. Hi Rick. Let's talk about your transition under my team. Part 2 of 3, r/true off my chest. Title, My boss used to bully me. Now I'm his boss. Part 2. So there we were. Rick, my old tormentor, sitting on a Zoom call, nervously straightening his collar, and trying to act casual while realizing the one guy he used to humiliate was now in charge of his professional fate. Life's weird like that. I didn't rub it in. That's not me. But I wasn't going to pretend, either. I was in this role because I earned it. I survived his garbage leadership, climbed out, built something real, and now I was here for a reason. The onboarding call was brief. I kept it professional. Thanks for joining, Rick, I said. Let's walk through the new org structure and where your team will fit in. He smirked. Sure. I guess I report to you now, huh? I smiled politely. Yep. Just that. No gloating. No sarcasm. Just confirmation. He nodded slowly, then leaned back in his chair. Well, I'm sure we'll make it work. Make it work. Like we were equals in this. Like it wasn't his behavior that had driven talent away, stalled projects, or nearly tanked our old agency's biggest account, which I later found out was the real reason for the merger push. But whatever. I wasn't here for drama. I had a team to lead. A department to rebuild. Clients to win. Rick was just another cog in the machine now. After the call, I sat back and just stared at the screen for a while. I won't lie, there was a very real, petty part of me that wanted to post a victory selfie with a caption like, "To all the Ricks out there, we're coming for your chairs." But instead, I texted my old roommate, the only person who knew the entire backstory, and just said, "He reports to me now." She replied in under 10 seconds. I'm screaming. Buy champagne. Steal his mug. Over the next few weeks, the integration process moved fast. The leadership team had a clear mandate: shake things up, clean house if needed, and rebuild with performance in mind. That meant one-on-ones, performance reviews, strategy presentations, the works. I made it clear from day one that I wasn't interested in politics or grudges. I judge people based on results, not history. But Rick? He wasn't ready to let go of the past. His first move was subtle. He CC'd me on an email to his team where he referred to me as Acting Strategy Coordinator, not my actual title, which was Head of Client Strategy, East Coast. I let it slide. The next time, he questioned one of my directives in a group meeting. Not openly insubordinate, but just enough pushback to create confusion. We never used to do it that way, he said. Are we sure that aligns with what the client expects? I looked at him, deadpan. Yes. I wrote the new guidelines. They've been approved. He nodded, like he was doing me a favor by backing down. But the final straw? He started meeting privately with a few team members from his old department, undermining the direction we were trying to move toward. One of them, a younger strategist, came to me in confidence and said, I'm not trying to stir the pot, but Rick's telling us to ignore your processes. Says they're temporary and won't last long. That true? I was stunned. Not surprised. But disappointed. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I called HR. I'd always been afraid to speak up. But now? I was the leadership. I laid out the facts. The behavior. The undermining. I shared the old documents from my early days, not as revenge, but to give them context on the pattern. To my surprise, the HR rep said, You're not the first person to report this. Apparently, even under the merger, Rick had burned more bridges than I realized. Let us handle it, she said. Keep doing your work. Don't let this distract you. And so I did. I doubled down on building a team culture that was collaborative, transparent, and respectful. I promoted a junior strategist who reminded me of myself at that age. I brought in new tools, updated SOPs, streamlined communication with clients. Morale improved within weeks. We even won back a major account we'd lost under the old regime. That's when the CEO, the real boss, called me. We've been watching the transition, he said. You're doing great work. There's going to be an executive retreat in October. I'd like you to lead one of the strategy sessions. I was floored. He continued, also, we're looking to formally restructure the regional executive board. There's a spot opening. Based on how things go, you're our top candidate. I hung up the phone, stunned. It hit me then, I wasn't just Rick's boss now. I was about to be his boss's boss. Part 3 of 3, r/true off my chest. Title, My boss used to bully me. Now I'm his boss. Final. If you've made it this far, first of all, bless you. You've got more patience than I ever did when Rick was monologuing about alpha energy in company meetings. But here we are. The final chapter. When we left off, I'd just gotten off a call with the CEO, who'd said, in so many words, that I was the front-runner for a soon-to-be open seat on the regional executive board. Which meant I wouldn't just be Rick's boss. I'd be part of the team that decided whether Rick even kept his job. Let me tell you, the emotional whiplash of that moment? Insane. I sat there thinking, this can't be real. This cannot be real life. I half expected to wake up back in my old sad Corolla in that office garage, chugging cold gas station coffee before another 12-hour day of eating crap from the Rick show. But it was real. And it was about to get weirder. A week after that call, we had the executive retreat. Some big hotel outside Boston, white tablecloths and name tags and enough coffee to float a battleship. I was there early, partly because I was nervous, partly because I'd been tapped to lead one of the strategy sessions. That's when I saw him. Rick. Wearing the same smug expression I'd seen 100 times, except now it looked thinner. Like it didn't quite fit his face anymore. He walked up to me during the first coffee break. "Hey," he said. "Crazy seeing you here." "Not that crazy," I replied, flipping through my notes. He looked around the room. "A lot of changes happening, huh?" I nodded. "All good ones, hopefully." Then he said it. The line I'll never forget. "Look, I know we've had history. But water under the bridge, right? Clean slate?" I paused. Now, don't get me wrong, I wanted to say yes. I really did. I believe people can change. I wanted to believe Rick could grow, or at least try to. But what came next told me he hadn't learned a damn thing. He smirked and added, "Besides, I always knew you had potential. You just needed someone to toughen you up." I blinked. Slowly. "You think that's what you did?" I asked. "Toughen me up?" "Sure," he said. "You're killing it now. So, must have worked, right?" Let me be clear, I've had my share of moments where I imagined telling Rick off in glorious cinematic fashion, with orchestral music swelling behind me and slow clapping from the entire office. But standing there, in a room full of people who respected me, I realized. He wasn't worth a monologue. I just smiled and said, "Good to see you, Rick." Then walked away. The retreat went well. My session got great feedback. One of the execs even told me afterward, "We've needed your kind of leadership for a while." I flew home on a high. 3 days later, it was official, I was voted onto the board. The youngest in the company's history. With that role came oversight of 3 departments, including Rick's. The next month was a blur of transition planning, client portfolio reviews, and performance check-ins. I didn't single Rick out. I treated him like any other department head. Fairly. Professionally. But Rick couldn't help himself. He tried to pull his old tricks. Undermining. Gatekeeping information. Passive-aggressive remarks during calls. My personal favorite? During a Zoom with a major client, he interrupted me to say, "I think what he means is..." I stopped him right there. "No, Rick. I meant what I said. Please don't speak for me." He froze. The client raised their eyebrows. And that was that. After the call, he messaged me. "Didn't mean to step on toes. Just trying to help." I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. Eventually, the metrics spoke louder than anything else. Rick's department was underperforming. Low client satisfaction, delayed deliverables, high turnover. It was impossible to ignore. And now, for the first time, I had the authority to do something about it. But I didn't want to fire him. Not yet. Instead, I scheduled a formal performance review. We sat down, just the 2 of us, in one of the new glass-walled conference rooms. I had his metrics printed out, highlighted, annotated. A full report. I went through it piece by piece. Calm. Professional. No drama. At the end, I said, So here's the situation. Based on these numbers, and feedback from your team, you have two options. He raised an eyebrow. Option 1, I continued, we put you on a formal performance improvement plan. New KPIs. Weekly check-ins. Full transparency. He shifted in his chair. Option 2, I said, you resign. No drama. No black marks. I'll even approve a neutral reference. Rick stared at me. You're giving me a choice, he said. I nodded. That's more than I got. He looked away. His jaw clenched. For a second, I thought he'd blow up, pull some "you can't do this" speech like he used to. But then something shifted. He slumped back in his chair and sighed. Really sighed. Not performative. Not dramatic. Just tired. Damn, he said quietly. You really made it. I said nothing. After a long pause, he stood up. I'll think about it, he said. And walked out. He resigned the next week. No big announcement. No farewell speech. Just a short email to HR and a box of his stuff quietly disappearing from the office. I won't lie, part of me felt a little hollow. I thought the moment would feel bigger. More victorious. But it didn't. Because by the time he left, I didn't need revenge. I had already won. In the months that followed, the team flourished. We promoted from within. Built a mentorship program. Launched 2 major client campaigns that exceeded every goal we set. Sometimes, when I walk past that same glass-walled conference room, I think about how far it all came, from sleepless nights in that garage parking lot to making decisions that shaped the entire company. And every once in a while, someone on the team will come to me after a rough meeting or a difficult presentation and say, "Hey, thanks for having my back." I always smile. Because I remember what it felt like when no one did. So yeah. That's the story. Rick bullied me. Mocked me. Undermined me for years. And in the end, I became his boss. But the real win wasn't the title. Or the office. Or even the poetic symmetry of it all. The real win was proving, to myself, that I didn't have to become him to beat him. I could rise above. And bring others with me. If you've got a Rick in your life, hang in there. Work hard. Stay kind. Keep receipts. And when the time comes, lead like nobody led for you.